Hello, this is Xbox Ahoy, and this is the 36th episode of my Black Ops Weapon Guide. Danger Close. In this episode, we're covering the China Lake. It's a pump-action weapon unlocked at level 48. The China Lake pump-action grenade launcher is a US weapon, named for the China Lake Naval Weapons Center, where it was developed. Designed in 1967, the weapon first saw limited service the following year, in 1968. The design has its roots in the M79 Thumper, a break-barrel grenade launcher that saw use during the Vietnam conflict. The China Lake's pump-action magazine-fed design was an attempt to increase the readily available firepower to the user, and thanks to its aluminium construction, it was a relatively lightweight design. Even when loaded with its full complement of 4 grenades, it weighed in at only half a pound heavier than the traditional M79 design. However, the China Lake had issues feeding certain 40mm grenades and never progressed beyond the prototype stage, with as few as 16 units produced. It was the underbarrel grenade launchers that would eventually displace the M79, such as the M203. And while such designs wouldn't boast the rate of fire of the China Lake, they would prove altogether more versatile. The China Lake fires 40 by 46mm grenades, the very same as used in the Thumper and underbarrel M203. The real-life weapon is able to hold 3 grenades in its tubular magazine, and another in the chamber, for 4 total. In-game, however, the China Lake will only hold 2 grenades at once. The China Lake's damage is equal to that of the underbarrel grenade launcher, with a relatively small lethal radius when compared to the other weapons in its class. And while the China Lake can be employed against air support, it's not exactly well suited to this role, dealing little damage to helicopters. Rate of fire tops out at around 30 rounds per minute, although this doesn't factor in reloads nor the time required to aim. The China Lake is a weapon with painfully slow handling. Switch time is lethargic, and when equipped you'll move at 80% speed, the same as an LMG. Aim time is also very slow, at half a second, and aiming is mandatory prior to firing. A complete reload will take 3 seconds, with the first grenade inserted in 2 seconds and the next taking an additional second. All in all, using this weapon requires considerable time and preparation. There are no attachments available for the China Lake, nor indeed for any of the launchers, but some of your perk choices will have an impact on the weapon. Scavenger is the most useful perk in your first slot, doubling your initial supply to 4 grenades instead of 2, and permitting more sustained use of the weapon. Sleight of Hand Pro is the most useful second perk, speeding reloads and improving the painfully slow half-second aim time. In addition, you can use this perk to increase your overall rate of fire. If you reload after firing your first grenade, instead of waiting for the pump animation to complete, you can shave nearly a second off the entire process. Hacker is most useful in your third slot, allowing you to see the location of enemy equipment in red through walls. Fire a grenade round a corner or through a window, and you may just score a lucky kill on a hapless defender. When using the China Lake, you'll want to ensure you're firing from a safe place. The slow handling and poor performance up close mean you don't want to be ambushed while holding the weapon. Ideally, you should fire from a secured location, and launching from an elevated post will yield the best results, giving you greater flexibility in terms of controlling your grenade's point of impact. The China Lake is a weapon with a capability to extend the reach of a mid to long range class. Paired with Scavenger Pro, you gain a healthy supply of 4 grenades, giving you more potential shots with the weapon than any other launcher. With an ability to hit enemies lurking inside buildings, around corners, or near any potential impact point, the China Lake will allow you to strike otherwise inaccessible targets while you hold a defensive position. Unfortunately, the China Lake is not a particularly nimble weapon, and with such slow handling characteristics, you will be left very vulnerable should you find yourself in a close-range gunfight. Switching to your primary is slow, and banking on a direct impact with your grenade is very risky indeed, so it is best to avoid such close encounters. However, keep your distance, and the China Lake can be a valuable extension to your available arsenal. With 4 grenades at the ready, this explosive secondary is ready to run riot. Indeed, the China Lake behaves just like a bull in a china shop. Thanks for watching. This has been Xbox Ahoy. So that's the launchers wrapped up now. and join me next week for the final LMG, the Stoner 63. Until then, farewell.